Hi, it's Leahz, and thank you so much for checking out my video here. There is something so interesting I came across quite some time ago, but I revisited the subject here recently, and I want to share it with you. I think you guys are going to be very interested to hear this message. But first, before I get into the message, I want to remind all of you that I am 100% viewer supported, and I really could use your guys' help right now. So if you feel led or moved to sow a gift into what I do, you can do so via my PayPal or my P.O. Box. The information is on the screen and it's beneath the video in the video description. Thank you to all of you who have been sowing into what I do. And also a special thanks to those of you on Patreon who support me there. I genuinely appreciate you guys as well. God bless you. Again, I am in desperate need of your guys' support. So if you could just take a moment to consider that, I would greatly appreciate it. So, everything is in the Bible. Anything and everything that we need to know is in the Bible if you study the words. So I'm sure all of you pretty much have heard about Pangaea. Pangaea is basically what it was called when everything was just one clump of land before it was all split apart and separated. So everything was originally joined together. So this used to be a theory, but it was proven to be factual. All of the land was joined together. Well, quite interesting as it is, the Bible tells us about it too. The Bible tells us that God divided the land. So there's a chapter in the Bible I'm sure all of you are familiar with. It's about Nimrod. Now, I know most of you are used to hearing Nimrod, but the pronunciation of his name is Nimrod. And it's Genesis chapter 11. And we're all taught about this tower, the Tower of Babel, that they were constructing to reach up to heaven. But what people haven't taught to you is what the whole thing about this tower that was being constructed really had to do with, and what Nimrod was really trying to do, and what the people were really trying to do. They were trying to outsmart God. And I'll show you exactly how they were trying to outsmart God in the Bible. So let's go ahead and have a look at Genesis chapter 11. And we're also going to glance at Genesis chapter 10 as well. So sometimes I've noticed in the Bible that one chapter will give us an overall summary of something and tell us something, and the next chapter gives us some more details. And then in other cases, one chapter will give us the details, and the next chapter will summarize it as well as giving us more information. And that's kind of what Genesis chapter 10 and 11 both do. So after I share this with you, we're going to go back to Genesis chapter 10. It says, now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. Well, that sentence kind of seems a little bit redundant because it says the same language and the same words. Therefore, one of these two words, language and words, must mean something different. So let's have a look. The word language can mean speech and talk, right? It also means edge, bank, binding, border, a lip of the body part, language, but it also means edge, shore, bank of the cup, sea, river, etc. So edge of the shore or the river or the sea. And then words means the same thing as language, speech, word, speaking, speech, saying, utterance, word, words. So you can see there what words means. So then you go into a deeper, and it means to speak, declare, converse, command, promise, warn, threaten, sing, and well, you can see the rest of it there on the screen. To speak with one another and to talk. It can also mean to teach. Going back to that verse, now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. Basically, this sentence is telling us the whole earth had the same border and the same language. So this verse is telling us The whole earth had the same seashore or border and the same language. It came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name." Name, by the way, also means memorial, monument, and mark. "Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." So, what are they really saying here? Well, I'll tell you what they're saying. They know that God is going to scatter them. They don't want to be scattered, so they are trying to erect a huge monument or a landmark and build this big city so that they will not be scattered, so that they can always find each other, a landmark. So they're making a big monument so that they will not lose track of one another. That's why it says, "Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." Notice it says, "Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. The Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language." And this is what they began to do. And now nothing which they propose to do will be impossible for them. "Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth. So notice verse 7, "Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So at this time, everyone spoke the same language or had the same speech. But when God decided to split apart the land, okay, and separate it and scattered them, that is how different languages began to evolve. So now let's go back to Genesis chapter 10. So let's skip ahead to verse 5 here. Genesis chapter 10. It says, "From these, the coastlands of the nations were separated into their lands, every one according to his language, according to their families, into their nations." The nations were separated into their lands, every one according to his language, according to their families, into the nations. Then you can go down here, verse 25. It says, "Two sons were born to Eber. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan." So Peleg means division or earthquake, earthquake and division. Channel, canal, to divide, to be split, to cleave. Okay, so that is the meaning of Peleg. And then what does it say after that? It says, "For in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan." Smallness. He will be made little, to be small, to be insignificant. Then you go down to verse 32. It says, "These are the families of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies, by their nations. And out of these, the nations were separated on the earth after the flood." The nations were separated on the earth after the flood. Now, keep in mind that Nimrod is one of those people in this family of the sons of Noah. All right. And you'll notice here in Genesis chapter 11, it says the whole earth used the same language and the same words, but it came about as they journeyed east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, they used tar for mortar. "Let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven. Let us make for ourselves a name, otherwise we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. So this tower, we've all been taught that, oh, they were building a tower trying to climb up to heaven. They were trying to get into outer space or whatever. I've heard all sorts of different teachings on it. But no, they were trying to build a huge monument, very tall, that could be seen from very far away so that they could not be scattered, so they could outsmart God, and so they could always have a place or a point, like a landmark, in which they would not lose each other. And they were also making themselves a city where this tower was. So they were trying to outsmart God by doing this and come against God because they did not want to be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So now let's look at some more facts about Pangaea, a supercontinent that existed millions of years ago when all the continents on Earth were joined together. The name Pangaea means all lands. Now, I'm not saying I agree with this millions of years ago thing they have there, but I'm just reading to you what it says. It began to break apart when magma rose through a weakness in the crust, creating a volcanic rift zone. The continents slowly drifted apart, forming the oceans and continents we know today. The Atlantic Ocean formed as the gap between the continents grew. The thick continental crust that made up the east coast of North America collapsed into fault blocks. Certain species of mammals became isolated in Antarctica, South America, Africa, and Australia. The theory of continental drift was proposed by Alfred Wegener in 1912. The theory of seafloor spreading was developed by Harry H. Hess and Robert S. Dietz in the 1960s. These theories led to the theory of plate tectonics. All right, so let's look at one more thing here. Pangaea is proven to have existed. The theory of Pangaea states that all the continents were once joined together in a single supercontinent. Evidence for Pangaea includes the shapes of the continents, the discovery of identical rocks and fossils, and the orientation of magnetic minerals in the rocks. So what did Pangaea look like? Let's have a look right here. You can see it on the screen. Here's the USA, Mexico, Brazil. You can see it all. Africa, everything all smushed together. So that's what Pangaea would have looked like. Now, there's also another verse in Genesis chapter 1 that tells us about Pangaea. Genesis chapter 1, verse 9, it says, Then God said, Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. So right there, let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. So very interesting. I want to keep this video short. So if you want to go look it up on your own, you can use the Blue Letter Bible, or you can use lifebible.com, get the NASB with Strong's. That's the one that I use. But if you go look up the meanings of the names in Genesis chapter 10, you can kind of figure out what God did to cause all of the land to separate. So it seems from the meanings of the names that there was obviously an earthquake. The names of the people also allude that there may have been a meteor or an asteroid and an earthquake, like I just said, and also a volcanic eruption. So earthquake, meteor or asteroid, and volcanic eruption. And God used all of those things, of course, to separate the land to where it all was like a puzzle now instead of one big clump of land. Sometimes we have a tendency to read things in the Bible and we think that God just, pointed his finger and whatever it says happened all at once, like right then and there. And sometimes that is the case. But in other cases, it's something that takes place over a period of time. One event could happen all at once, but then the other events happen over a period of many years, such as in this case, the land was separated and divided, thus, the people were scattered. Scattered, okay? And we're going to look at the word scattered before I end this video, but the people were scattered. You can see clearly there it says it was all one chunk of land, but it was separated and divided. So that's very evident. So the Tower of Babel wasn't built because they were trying to climb up into heaven, as we've been taught. The Tower of Babel was built as a huge, tall monument that would reach so high that God could never scatter them. And thus they had their own city with this big monument, and they would never lose track of one another. And as a result, they would outsmart God and not be scattered abroad. But of course, it shows us God coming down and seeing what they were doing. And of course, God put a halt to that. He put a halt to it by causing a huge, magnificent event that divided up all of the land, pulled it apart into pieces like a puzzle, and thus, over time, causing the languages to be different, confusing the language. I hope that you found this video interesting, and I really encourage you to go look up the meanings of all of the words. There's some very interesting stuff, because I was doing some research too about the Native Americans over here in the USA. And there's different opinions, but some people believe, and I'll just show you since I need to go back to the screen anyways. So first, let's look at the word scattered, as I promised, so I don't forget. It says to scatter, to be dispersed, scatter, to flow, overflow, to break, to shatter, to dash to pieces. Now, isn't that what would have happened had there been some type of an asteroid or a meteor, a volcano, and an earthquake? So that is how God separated all of the lands and thus scattered us, dashed the land to pieces. Now let's go back to here. I was going to tell you what I learned by studying about, well, where did the Native Americans come from? How did they get here? What tribe? So the vast majority of people who study that sort of thing believe that the Native Americans came from the tribe of what looks like Joktan, but it's actually pronounced Yaktan. Yaktan. Okay. And that would have been through the tribe of Shem, Noah's son, Shem. So the vast majority believed it was through that tribe, Yaktan. Now, there were some that believed the Native Americans came through Japheth's bloodline, which would have been Javan. In fact, let's see how we pronounce this, because I'm probably mispronouncing it, I'm sure. Of course. It is pronounced Yavan. Yavan. So the tribe of Yavan is where they feel like these Native Americans came from. But like I said, the vast majority believed that they came through the tribe of Yaktan. So that's also very interesting. There's a lot of people who from time to time are very curious about the Native Americans. Many of us living here in the USA have that Native American bloodline in us. So sometimes that's a very interesting curiosity. So I wanted to share that with you as well. Well, I hope this video blessed you. I hope it opened your eyes. I hope it gave you understanding about what the Tower of Babel was really about. It wasn't about all of the people trying to build this tower that went up into outer space or anything crazy like that. And you can kind of see that in the verse, because as they're talking about building this tower that would reach up into the heavens, they mentioned to keep God from scattering them. It also doesn't make sense that it would say, you know, they all spoke one language and the same words. So, as I mentioned previously, that would be kind of redundant. And you can see words and language mean the same thing, except for one minor difference. Language also means the edge and the borders. So, Pangaea in the Bible, you can see it clearly. Like I said, if people would study the Bible and study the words, you will find a deeper meaning to what the things in the Bible are really telling us. So, as I've clearly stated, probably way too many times already in this video, we've all been taught that the Tower of Babel was just built so people could climb up into outer space, but that's not the case. It was a monument or a landmark as they were building this city to outsmart God and keep God from scattering the people. But of course, who in their right mind could ever outsmart God? No one. But then, of course, Nimrod was one of those mighty warriors, and he was very arrogant, and he was shaking his fist in the face of God, thinking that he could be as powerful as God and outsmart God. But of course, he couldn't. So I hope you learned something today. God bless all of you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I depend on all of you to do those things to help me because I am severely shadow banned. And don't forget also, as I said at the start of this video, I'm 100% viewer supported. And I have had some support here and there, but overall it has been horribly low for a long time. Hey, I know the economy is horrible. I know we're all suffering. But if any of you out there hearing this message could help me out, I would appreciate it. I have to pay rent here very soon. Also, with it being very cold and being wintertime, I'm here in Ohio. My gas bill has been very high. I've been trying to keep my heat very low, but my house is old and the owners don't really do a lot to it. And it has a lot of bad insulation and leaks and stuff like that. So my furnace just runs constantly. I have medical needs. I really, really desperately need your guys' help. I can't tell you enough. It's really bad. So please consider sowing into this ministry. Thank you so much, and God bless all of you. Most importantly, don't forget to be pleading with the Lord for deliverance from sin. Plead with the Lord to give us a heart change. Plead with the Lord that we will all be clean and obedient to Him as His servants, as His loyal, faithful servants. God bless you. It surrounds us. Your unfailing love surrounds us. It surrounds He is our help and our shield.